zero. Now I'm seeing M's. Diamonds like water and they jumping out the gym. Shooting like Harden if your head was the rim.
Hey guys, welcome to our first show of the year. I'm Lucas Widerka. I'm here with my co-host Dylan Hale. We're excited to have you guys listening to our show right now. We have two very special guests with us today. I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Noah Diamond. I'm a freshman at the ILR school.
Yeah, I'm Kyle Goodman. I'm a sophomore in the ILR school.
And we're recording here about 2.5 hours out of the NBA trade deadline. What are your guys' initial reactions to the biggest news of the day, the James Harden for Ben Simmons deal?
I would say the 76ers are on the losing end of the deal, but I do ultimately think neither team really benefits that much from the trade.
I quite very much disagree, actually. I mean, I do agree that of either team, the Nets are the big winner, but I think each of them gain a lot. If just looking at it, though, from the Sixers, they can only go up. Like, they had a guy who was just a no asset who was just sitting there. So even, of course, you want the big asset like Harden, but in a sense, any player is better than no player. So I do think they actually got a lot better, and it makes sense. They have a big defender. Ben Simmons is going to do a lot for that Nets team. I think they can use him in a Draymond role a lot. Draymond Green, he's going to be that big playmaking screener who runs the defense. And then you have these two, sharpshooters. I think it's going to actually go really well. But I also think the Sixers got a lot better. I mean, Harden and Embiid's as good as it gets.
Here's why I think differently. I don't look at Ben Simmons as the prize of the 76ers package, mainly because he hasn't been playing and he still is just dealing with personal issues. He's not going to be able to play immediately for the Nets. He still has to get his mind right. I think the prize of the 76ers package is Seth Curry. He is having the best season of his career. He's scoring 15 points per game, which is a career high, 4 assists per game, which is a career high, 48.5% from the field, second highest in his career, and 34.8 minutes per game, a career high. Ben Simmons, not having a career season. So I think really the 76ers are going to miss Seth Curry a lot, and they are also getting Paul Millsap to replace Drummond. Millsap is much older than Drummond, and right now Drummond is playing more and just has a better stat line and really has more use for the 76ers than Drummond does. With the Nets, if Simmons, gets out there and it looks like Ben Simmons of old, it's a great deal. If it's more of the same, it's a terrible deal. So it really depends. And not to mention, they already have a quote unquote head case at point guard in Kyrie Irving, who right now is still only available for home away games for the Brooklyn Nets. So still a wild card at point guard for them.
My biggest takeaway with this deal, and you see it all the time in the NBA, there's no other real league like it, is do we realize how star-driven the NBA is and how you can get, once you achieve a certain level of play, you can get essentially whatever you want. I'm talking Ben Simmons and James Harden, two guys on contracts. I mean, trade deadline starts to look like free agency at times, where you have Harden who says, nope, I'm not going to play in Brooklyn. I don't like it there. I don't like living in Brooklyn. I've had enough. I'm done. And Simmons obviously is a story of its own. But these guys basically were the GMs of this deal in the fact that they commanded this trade and the trade was executed, because at the end of the day, if your star doesn't want to play where he is and he is the one who gets the last say, you can't just say, screw that, you're going to have to play, because these stars can sit out, they can hold out, they can do whatever they want. So, no matter what the deal was for the front office for both teams, they had to make the trade at the end of the day because their players were unhappy where they were. And I think that's something about the NBA that you don't really see in many other major sports.
Yeah, I definitely agree with your sentiment there. I think it's interesting also looking at, the both Harden trades, I guess you could say, the one where he left Houston and then looking at this, like all things considered, I think the Nets got back a really solid haul for how much they gave up going to Houston. I think it's also really funny that they gave up Levert and Jared Allen, and now those two are together again in Cleveland. But, I think you touched upon it a bit earlier, Kyle, like the value of Seth Curry to this team is going to be really good indeed. I know Simmons probably isn't going to play even for the next month, quite possibly for the Nets, but it's still better than, not having Harden, who basically was like, yeah, I'm not playing another minute for you guys. And very much gave that impression for the last week before the trade deadline, before today. But getting, another shooter to space it out, having Curry come with Simmons, I think is a really big get. And being able to just space it more so that you can have KD, you can have Kyrie, you can have Curry, you can have like Patty Mills and Blake Griffin, who can stretch it a bit as well now too. Having that around Ben Simmons, just facilitating an environment for him where, again, he can play kind of that Draymond role where he can just be a really good defensive presence, kind of run the offense even when the ball's not necessarily in his hands, and just navigate for everyone else, setting big screens and everything like that from the 3 or 4 or wherever they decide to play him. And I think for the Sixers, their starting five is going to be really interesting, looking at, up and coming the season Tyrese Maxey's having, pairing that with Harden, and then having Embiid, who will probably be the MVP of this season, especially on the recent tear he's been on. And then just, you're losing a piece with Drummond, probably the best backup center in the NBA right now. I'm trying to find a void to replace that, whether that's on the buyout market, which it probably will be. And then I was also kind of surprised they didn't move Tobias Harris. But I think with this current team that they've constructed, he has a very good fit there as well. Are there any other impressions that you guys have either about this trade?
Yeah, I mean, one thing you guys were saying is that, you don't know when Ben Simmons is going to come back. I don't know why that's the case, because the whole thing was kind of his mental health was what
vaccinated too.
That's true.
Which is a kind of tricky situation.
So that may take some time, but on the mental health side, I mean, this is a very complicated issue that, we don't know what Ben Simmons' mental health is, of course, but like, I think the big thing was just that he was in Philly. So now I think that he's out of it. I would expect him coming back.
Joel Embiid's tweet
soon.
Right after it. I don't know if you guys
that was
saw
insane.
It was just it's the old like
the guy, saying like, oh, I had to make sure my enemy was dead, came to his funeral. That was crazy. And also I found this quote, or, with Kyrie, that he was saying he was, quote, eager for Harden to leave once he heard about this like kind of expectation for it to happen. That, to me, that's crazy. Does he not realize that like Kyrie himself, like he has no self-awareness? He's the guy, funny. Incredible basketball player, but he's kind of the crazier guy. That this is just funny. It's just a lot of drama queens on one team, and I guess now it's a little split up, but just crazy.
Yeah, but talking about the stars on the Sixers end of it, I think the good thing to see as a basketball fan after this deal is that I thought both Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid are happy tonight going home after this trade. Simmons, obviously, in my lifetime, I've never seen a player as betrayed by their fan base as Ben Simmons. Not saying that it was completely undeserved. Obviously, he had his woes in the postseason, and he's had all these mental health issues holding out, but he's got to be happy to be out of there. New potential opportunity for him to have a rebirth in his career, playing with Kevin Durant, playing with Kyrie Irving if he gets to play. And then for Embiid, having someone like James Harden come in, I think, like you said, Lucas, already having an MVP season, I think this is the first real time, in my opinion, in his career where if I'm Joel Embiid, I'm saying we can win it this year. We can win a championship. So we'll see going forward.
I think those pick and rolls with Harden and Embiid are going to be really fun to watch this year, especially with what Harden was doing, towards the end of last year, how he was just like probably the best facilitator he's ever been in his life. And then seeing that transition to a new environment where I think Embiid probably, he's already playing at an insanely high level, but kind of getting that kick. I can't believe it honestly took this long for Simmons and Embiid to split up. We've seen it for 4 years now that their play styles just don't mesh and they don't get along as, individuals either. But it's over. I think Philly fans are just so elated right now. One of my friends I was just talking to from Philly, and he's just over the moon.
I think it's a little premature to assume that Harden is like going to fit right in Philadelphia and like make them more of a contender. He's still a great player, and he did make the All-Star team again. But you can't ignore that he is trending down, and maybe part of that is playing a different role later in his career. But this season, he has his lowest points per game since the 2011-2012 season, his lowest three-point field goal percentage of his career, and lowest field goal percentage since his rookie season. The thing that Harden can do that Simmons can't is shoot. But if he isn't shooting as well as people expect him to shoot or are used to him shooting, it could be a problem.
Yeah, that's definitely a great point. One thing is, I feel like we saw this before, right? When Harden was pretty much at the end with the Rockets, he was really not playing well. He comes out with the fat suit. So I wonder, I wouldn't be surprised if the, first few games in Philly, he's back to going 60-point triple doubles. Like, I really think that this could just be.
That's what happened with the Nets. He just flipped that switch, and it was like, oh shit, he's like
exactly.
But look where we are now. Who's to say that he won't demand another trade?
That's why
2 years or 3 years later.
100%.
It's so interesting seeing. We saw this revitalization of it being a player-driven league in the NBA, and now looking at it like in its purest form. I guess right now, you're looking at it not only influencing, free agency, and, you can draw comparisons to like Kawhi and Paul George in LA, now seeing it really transpire and players just saying, no, I don't want to play here anymore. Even like to a degree, CJ McCollum, who's been with the Blazers forever, having a say in his trade to the Pelicans, and the Blazers obviously just getting fleeced in every single deal they do, playing a factor into that as well.
Yeah. I think it was just a very interesting, trade, and I'm excited for how it plays out. And it's just going to be good. And this is something NBA fans should be happy about. These changeups are the best time of the year. And if I'm the rest of the East, though, I'm actually horrified. I was not that scared about either team before. Comparatively, Giannis to me is the best player in the East by far. But I'm really scared now. Yeah, or even in the NBA. Simmons is as close to a Giannis stopper as it really gets. Bam's also up there, but Simmons, Simmons really scares me. This Bucks team isn't as strong as it was. Comparatively looking at it, the East got even better.
And talking
Simmons has to play. That's the problem. If he doesn't play, it doesn't matter.
You're still getting, Seth Curry, who's at worst a phenomenal role player for your team, who can really space the floor and just shoot efficiently from a single game.
And obviously all dependent on Kyrie Irving. He's the big piece of this.
Yeah.
What's going to happen with him?
Yeah.
So much can change.
Does he get vaccinated now?
Does he get vaccinated?
He can only play 10 more games for the rest of the season. So until the playoffs, they have 10 games to make this work.
Yep.
That's pretty absurd. And even if you look at the playoff games, if they're at home, Kyrie's not playing.
He's gone for half the series.
Or if they play Toronto, he's not playing that whole series. It's going to be weird.
You want to win at home. Like, if Kyrie can't play in home games and they don't win those home games because he doesn't play, what does that say about Kyrie Irving? I mean, the home is where you want to win. That's how you win your series. It's by winning your home games. It'll be really interesting to see how things work out for the Nets in the playoffs.
Yeah. Are there any other trades for you guys that really left an impression on you, or anything that you just want to talk about in general, like league altering or just confusing?
Yeah, I mean, confusing doesn't even start to describe Sabonis, Halliburton, the Pacers and Kings trade. I was floored. I was
aghast.
Twitter, this is when it's the best time to be on Twitter. It's just when this crazy shit happens, and you can just see all these fan bases go crazy. If anyone was on the Kings Reddit, they blew up.
As if it could get worse for them.
And it was pretty unjustifiable. Tyrese Halliburton, really nice.
He should have been the one untouchable player.
Yeah, 100%. But
even Buddy Hield has proven that he's a very solid player.
Yeah, I was surprised they both were in the deal.
Getting that and only giving up. I mean, Sabonis is a really good player.
Really good.
I think his ceiling is limited though, and the Kings are just the Kings, I guess. But getting Tyrese Halliburton, who I saw live in person, I was sitting, court level for the Knicks Kings game. Halliburton didn't even score really well, but he was just phenomenal. Like you just look at his passing and what he's able to do with the ball in his hands. And I'm interested to see how it plays off with the rest of that Pacers team, especially when healthy and just as a building block for the future as well. Just the Kings, man. I don't know what to do with them.
Kings are gonna king.
Yeah, that's as true as
I
it gets.
mean, what's the plan for the Kings? In my opinion, I think at best, Domantas Sabonis is a 2. I don't think he's a 1 in terms of going through a playoff run. So that means
And Fox surely isn't a 1 or a 2.
Two.
Harrison Barnes, number 1 option.
I mean, not that they were exactly title bound this year, but I mean, they just obviously gave up this whole boatload of talent and players for Sabonis. What are they going to do to bring in the next guy? You know, if I'm a Kings fan, I can't really see a win or playoffs in the foreseeable future after that.
Yeah, exactly. That's my thing. Like, what are you exactly building towards with that move? Because you're not in a position to be like a top.
I think they're just
6
trying to make the
maybe
play-in,
8.
which I guess for Sacramento is good enough.
But you got to
That's
pay
like a
guys
championship
too, and
for
that's a
them.
building
2 days.
block
Yeah.
with Halliburton. I mean, you can kind of relate it maybe to what the Bulls did last year, and the Bulls, you know, at full strength, even though they're not beating the best teams, they're still a really, really good team and can definitely pick up steam, especially with the defenders that they have and the like automatic scoring that you have with DeRozan and Levine. But the Kings don't have the market that Chicago has. It's a different free agent class this year, and they also don't have the money. I mean, there's going to be money dedicated to Fox, and there's going to be money dedicated to Sabonis, and you haven't drafted remotely well outside of.
I mean, he was the
Halliburton.
one good pick they've had in
Exactly.
a while.
And he fell in their lap too. So it's just
Also, all the quotes about how Tyrese Halliburton was crying after, how he really was into the
It's
Kings.
heartbreaking
And,
as a player. It is.
Yeah.
You think you're going to be the guy, or you have a bright future there, and then check your phone and you're gone. You know. Also want to give a shout out to Buddy Hield. Buddy Hield was, like you said,
most handsome man in the NBA.
Buddy Hield was my favorite player ever since his Oklahoma days, where he just
Wow.
tore it up, took them to the Final Four. I mean, talking in the summer, like I remember the Lakers were looking into getting Buddy Hield as like a piece. I mean, they would have loved to have him now, but I saw him tweet out he's really excited for a new beginning, and hopefully he can find his NBA path after this. But we'll see.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that he kind of was viewed as like a throw in to the Sabonis Halliburton trade when like he's not having his best year this year, but he's, you know, shown consistent ability, especially shooting the ball and being able to play the 2 and 3 as a wing this year, more so with Mitchell and Halliburton and Fox. I think he can be a very valuable piece for a team.
Oh yeah, I mean, you can't blame Buddy Hield for being excited about leaving the Kings. As I feel most players would be happy to leave that market.
yeah, and I don't know. We'll see what their future has, but you're paying Fox, what, $34 million. Sabonis is on a nice deal, and you got to give him some credit. I feel like he's getting undeserving hate right now. He put up a nice 22 and I think 14 in his debut.
last year.
Yeah, 2-time All-Star,
Let's not
but
discredit Sabonis here, but you know, in
It's-
the grand scheme of things,
it's just the condition of the trade is.
It's all circumstantial. I think the oversight that we're giving him as a player, because he is a very good player.
But Pacers are doing it right. You know, I think they should have broken it up some time ago. It's been a discussion for a while. I'm surprised they didn't move Miles Turner, but I think they're doing the right steps. They just got that guy from the Suns, Smith. So I'm happy that
First round pick.
yeah, they're
Jalen Smith.
Jalen Smith. Thank you. Yeah. So I think they're doing the right stuff. That's what you want to see
Yep.
in a young rebuilding
Yep.
team. And now you build around Halliburton.
Now you don't have to re-sign Brogdon either. You're giving yourselves those flexibilities with the cap and everything as well. Were there any other trades? I know there's the Porzingis trade as New York, or we're going to school in New York. There's a bit of buzz there. Wizards definitely did some things. The Celtics made some, you know, nice small moves.
Yeah, I want to say if we're giving a least valuable, you know, an LVP kind of award or least valuable team, I'm giving that to the Blazers. I think every move they did took away a few years of my life just from the stress it put me under. They did it absolutely wrong. I don't know how. First off, with the Norman Powell, Robert Covington, I know, you know, you don't worry about sunk costs, or you shouldn't, but they gave up 2 first-round picks for Robert Covington. They gave up Gary Trent, who's now killing it on the Raptors, for Norman Powell, and then they give them up for practically nothing.
for less than
Eric
for less than
Bledsoe,
nothing.
and Keon Johnson.
one other guy.
It was just ridiculous. And I don't know. And then the CJ too was pretty offensive. And they gave up Larry Nance.
It wasn't only the CJ thing, it was getting, I like Nikhil Alexander-Walker a lot, and Josh Hart's had a really good bounce back year, you could say, and he's staying there. But then flipping Alexander-Walker, who's a very promising young player on a rookie deal, who has done well with solid time this year, and then getting back Joe Ingles, who's
on a torn
ACL, who's going to be a free agent after this year. Like, it just doesn't make any sense, because there's no way Portland is that hallucinative where they think that they're like Joe Ingles is going to be healthy and then just want to sign with them, unless they have a just massive plan where they have everything laid out for free agency and everything like that. And they need to then hit on all of those guys that they're going to be targeting. It's really rough to see what they're trying to do right now.
I think they have, I think something like 60 million, or maybe I'm exaggerating, but a lot of money in free agency, which to me, tell me who is going to Portland? First off, who are the free agents? Is Bradley Beal going to Portland? Like
an injury.
Yeah, exactly. So it just doesn't make sense, but maybe this could be like a Porzingis type thing. When he leaves the Knicks, we say, what are they doing with the cap space? And
5 power forwards.
Yeah, well, that's fair, but maybe they have some secret plan, but I would be shocked. And maybe we do have to give it a few months for all these trades to really give them solid grades. But right now, the Blazers.
Don't they also have to focus on re-signing Jusuf Nurkic?
Yeah, he's a free agent too. But then to me, why didn't you trade Nurkic too? I think you could get some value out of him as expiring. Yeah, it's crazy all around. So Blazers, as bad as it gets to me. But I do want to go back on the Porzingis trade that you brought up.
Well, I was gonna say quickly that I feel for Damian Lillard. I really do. It's tough where he's at this point in his career, because I know he seems young, but he's already 31, and I think the Blazers are in the zone you don't want to be in as a franchise, where it's the gray zone. Like, we're not rebuilding, but we're not contented. You know what I mean? Like, they have the star, they have a top 10, 15 guy in the NBA. That's not really debatable, who's been given his life to the team, and now if he stays here, which I know loyalty is his number one value, it always has been, but he's not going to win in Portland, and it's a small market. But I don't really know what the plan is for the Blazers going forward. It's definitely not a championship anytime soon. So if you're Dame, do you want to leave? If you're at Portland, do you want to give everything to get him a star? I don't know what's going to happen for him. I feel for him.
Come to the Knicks.
Well, I mean, say that every year, don't we?
We talk about the teams that didn't make trades, and obviously going back to the Porzingis trade, I don't know what the Mavs are doing. And then I saw they just signed an extension with Dorian Finney-Smith.
Yeah.
A pretty nice deal for them too, not a ton of money. But taking on the contract of Dinwiddie and Bertans, like Bertans might be these past 2 years. I know he's phenomenal in 19. These past 2 years, he might be one of the worst basketball players I've ever seen in my life. Like, he cannot defend, he cannot shoot at all anymore. He's just lost out there.
He's definitely in top 10 worst contracts in the league. And you could even add that Dinwiddie right now is too. He came off a torn ACL last year, and it's just crazy. Also,
like, I'd understand it for the Mavs if you're dumping the Porzingis contract to get rid of money. So maybe you can, again, like Dorian Finney-Smith, and then Jalen Brunson's contract is up after this year. But this just handicaps you in terms of making at least the Brunson move. Just really confusing stuff from the Mavs. And maybe they're hoping that Dinwiddie can be, that electric point scorer that he showed when he was in Brooklyn for a bit. But it's just hard when you're looking at their recent body of works to really understand why the Mavs would try to want that return even.
Yeah, I mean, when Bertans signed that big deal in the 2020 free agency, he was shooting 42% from three, averaging 15 points a game. Oh yeah, it was great. And right now he's shooting 32% from three and 5 points a game. It's just crazy. And I don't fully know how this happened. I'm confused on everything out of this. And as big Luka fan, to me, he is totally in that GOAT potential. And then you give him this trade. I'm so confused.
Yeah.
Dinwiddie's not going to pass him the ball the second he gets it in his hands. Yeah. Like, it just whatever.
And to Washington too. I mean, Beal's out for the rest of the season after surgery. So
forwards.
Yeah, what are we trying to do here with Porzingis? Are you trying to win and see if you can possibly make the 10 seed.
I think the Wizards are ruled out for this year at this point. Without
Yeah.
Beal, they're not doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give Kuzma's been nice, better than I think anyone expected. But otherwise, I don't really know what we're seeing here.
Did they get rid of
They got rid of Aaron Holiday. That was
they
another
have, like,
trade they did.
Neto, yeah. And it's Neto, and then like
They just got
7
Ish
million
Smith.
forwards. Ish Smith is so bad.
Yeah,
But like you have a ton of forwards who are young with potential. Like Abia is really good. Rui, once he gets his legs back under him, coming back from, just a personal matter. You have Thomas Bryant, who, God forbid, he can stay healthy, is a really good piece, just big, strong, athletic center. And then you have Kyle Kuzma, who's been, a really solid player for them this year, has developed his 3-ball a bit more. He needs to do it on a more consistent basis, but also really good rebounding the ball as well. KCP's been whatever. You have no guards and a ton of like forwards, like 3, 4, and then like a couple. So I don't know. It's hard.
Isn't it unbelievable that Russell Westbrook was on that team last season?
yeah, crazy.
Hard to believe. That's true.
And they won that trade by a mile, and they're still like now looking at maybe the 11th.
And all these teams that we've talked about are, as you just said, in the worst position possible, where you're good enough to not get a high lottery pick, but you're bad enough where maybe you get the 8th seed, right? We've talked about the Kings, Pacers are doing right, but Kings, the Blazers, the Wizards, these are all teams that are making moves to be good enough, but not, I'm just confused.
Yeah.
Very confused.
So just to wrap up our entire NBA segment, like portion of the show, what do you guys see, the rest of the season playing out? We saw, the Lakers not make any moves whatsoever, how that might come into play, how they might just completely disappear from the picture in the West. But what are your thoughts right now heading into the final stretch of the year?
I'd say with the Lakers, they demonstrated that they cannot and will not learn from history. They thought they could throw together this super team with Russell Westbrook, with Carmelo Anthony, and win another championship while LeBron is still there. But if you look back, the Lakers had a team with Kobe, Shaq, and Karl Malone. They didn't go anywhere. Then
Don't forget the glove.
Yes, the glove. Then several years later, Kobe, Dwight, Steve Nash.
Yep.
That went nowhere.
There's a trend.
Jeremy Lin.
And now they have this team: LeBron, AD, Russ, and Melo. And it also looks like they just aren't going anywhere.
You just
So
don't play together. Like Russ, when we initially got the news that Russ was, going to the Lakers, I was like, oh, it's probably more for LeBron to transition to more of a backseat role, not be initiating the offense all the time, or maybe just doing it more so to close out games. And
he's still doing that.
Yeah,
He's carrying the team.
carrying them.
He's doing the
AD's
exact things he
fragile as
doesn't want to be
always.
doing.
Yeah.
I mean, you're paying someone $45 million to not play the fourth quarter. That's just absurd. But maybe it's the delusional LeBron superfan in me, but I don't want to play them in the playoffs. Maybe this is, totally unjust, and I'm not. Oh, that's actually a more fair point. But I think we'll see. I have faith in LeBron, but also just you can't ignore just the awful stuff this
Who do you
team's been
guys
showing.
see, rising to the top of the East and the West respectively, and even some early predictions on maybe the finals?
At this point, I wouldn't be surprised, and actually probably would pick a finals rematch from last year. The Suns, I think, are the hottest team in basketball. They've been all year. I mean, 44-10. That's ridiculous. Obviously, the Warriors, I think, if they continue to put it together, they could make a push for the Western Conference. But we talked about earlier on the show. I think Giannis is definitely the best player in basketball right now. The team is still great. They've been hot too recently, and I don't really see them being stopped either. Giannis, I think a lot of people say, oh, he just gets his points, his high field goal percentage by dribbling and dunking, all that stuff. But watching him play on a nightly basis, he's posing us up, fade away. He's hitting 3-pointers. I think as his game develops, the Bucks for the future, and especially this year, will be very hard to stop.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I think Suns are as good as it gets in the West. Really incredible, proving to everyone, not that we should have doubted them ever, but they're real. Warriors are exciting. And with the Giannis point, I know like 2 nights ago, he puts up 45 and 15. And I just went, okay,
The
that's
Lakers
not
game
normal.
was, like the
People-
most effortless. I think he had 44 in
Yeah.
the game or something.
85% shooting.
yeah, people don't do that. It's incredible. And to me, I think I still, even with this Harden stuff, to me, the Bucks are as good as it gets in the East. The thing I'm most excited for the rest of the year is probably seeing what John Morant does in the playoffs.
Yep.
He's just been as fun to watch.
That team is so complete and so deep and so.
And they're just young, and they're not supposed to win a championship
No.
this year. Going
They've
to
already
the
experienced
conference
it.
finals would be absurd for Ja.
Yep.
I'll take anything from him.
Yep.
Yeah, and people think it's a one-man show with the Grizzlies, but he obviously has great support from Desmond Bane. It's a very good team. They aren't 3 seed for nothing. They're definitely a team to look out for. But I have to agree with the others. I think the Suns are the team to beat in the West. The Warriors, if they put things together and Clay keeps improving after making his return, things could look up for them. In the East, I have my eyes on the Chicago Bulls. I know they've been out of the playoffs for a couple of years, but their front office took a lot of care to put together a winning team over the past couple of months, dating back to last year, trading for Nikola Vucevic, who's been very solid for them at the 5. Healthy, I think they're a very complete team. They defend well. They have multiple scoring options, and they're really exciting. Who wouldn't want to see the Caruso? When he was healthy, he was among the league leaders in steals per game, just proving time and time again that he isn't this quote unquote meme player, but a very, very valuable player, the kind of guy that can get a team over the hump. That's why my eyes are on the Bulls.
Yeah, I think I really like the Bulls, and their offseason, every single move is kind of hit, and that's even with losing guys in the beginning of the year. My problem with the Bulls is they just haven't beaten good teams this year. They have a really, really, really bad record against, top tier teams. I also find it kind of interesting how, we obviously had the Sixers Nets deal, but how a lot of the teams at the top of both conferences didn't really make any, really many moves at all. Like you look at the Warriors, you look at, the Bucks got Serge Ibaka, which I think is actually a really good get for them, being able to be that super athletic, stretch the floor, defend multiple positions, either at the 4 or 5 at this stage of his career, and just, kind of attaching that to Portis and Lopez. But, being able to looking at, what the Heat did, which is basically nothing, or I don't even know if they made a move. Looking at the Hornets, looking at the Suns, looking at, the Warriors, it's kind of interesting seeing that a lot of teams, stayed put this year, even though we might have had, the biggest trade deadline in recent memory.
And who says staying put is a bad thing? You know what
It's
I mean?
not.
I think the thing that separates the Bucks, obviously, aside from Giannis, is that they show up and they have the same bases in the locker room that they've had the past few years. Like even the Bulls, as you said, they're so talented and they've been playing well. But when you get to the postseason, it's about chemistry. It's about how long you played together. And that Middleton and Giannis duo with the coach and everything, they've had that core for a while. And I think they can just build on that. And in terms of the West Coast, I think it might be time as a basketball fan, just look at LeBron's career. The fact that probably, hopefully, for the second year in a row, if he's lucky, they'll be one of the lower seeds in the playoffs, and they'll be on the road. And even if he makes the playoffs, which they will, I'm pretty sure, but then they are at Phoenix again, and that's a series you expect to go 5-6 games. And then he's gone the first round.
He's not afraid of LeBron.
It's heartbreaking as a fan. As we grew up, he's been our idol our whole lives, but it could be a new chapter for LeBron.
I think we need to appreciate all these older players and watch them as much as we can.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think just to wrap this up, I think, this trade deadline, and I want to, specify even just adding the play in last year's added to a lot of the intrigue of the trade deadline. And, those teams that might have been in that purgatory or middle ground, as we were talking about earlier, getting those 2 extra seeds and making it that much more feasible for teams, to make a run in the playoffs. Because once you're in, and, from there, the rest of the season's erased. What's in front of you is what's in front of you, and you just beat the teams that you play. Just looking at the impact of the play-in and just, being really excited for the final stretch of the season. I know we had the same feeling last year as well with stuff picking up. And of course, with this weekend coming up, we would be remiss if we did not discuss the Super Bowl. We got the unlikely team of the Cincinnati Bengals led by a second-year quarterback, Joe Burrow, going against the LA Rams, who are playing this game for the second straight year. Team is playing their Super Bowl in their home stadium, which is really fascinating because it never happened before. But what are your guys, just mini previews, mid predictions for the game?
Well, you brought up the point about them being at home. I think this is a very underrated thing. I think it's only being talked about as like a cool stat. But on the point where these other teams have been, if I'm not mistaken, the Bengals have keep on playing away games, right?
They're the first round at home against the Raiders, and then
otherwise, they've been away, and
not afraid playing.
they're going to different hotels every night. The Rams guys, they're living in their houses, going to the same practice facility every day. To me, I think the home court advantage is underrated in this case, and I think it's actually going to play a big effect. Right? We saw it with Tom Brady and the Bucs last year.
2 years in a row. Yep.
With the Bengals, what they have going for them is they've played in a lot of close games, and I think the game this Sunday will also be a close game. They've won their last 2 games by game-winning field goal by shooter Money McPherson.
Nice.
Throughout their season, postseason and regular, they're 7-5 in games decided by 7 points or less. So they have lots of experience in playing close games. I also think they have a more balanced offense. They have a more reliable running game with Joe Mixon. They spread the ball to more of their receivers because when I look at the Rams, most of the targets and yards per game and touchdown passes are going to Cooper Kupp, but that's not to say he doesn't deserve all those targets because he is a phenomenal receiver. But when you look with the Bengals, it's 93 yards per game to Jamar Chase and about 70 yards per game to T. Higgins. Joe Burrow is spreading the ball around the field. That's something you like to see as an offensive coordinator. A bad thing for Joe Burrow, though, he's taken 12 sacks in the postseason. And, people had said it before the season started that the Bengals were going to struggle to, put up an offensive front and win the trenches. Touchdown interception ratio is 4-2, while Stafford's is 6-1 in the playoffs. So it may be that Stafford, is the better quarterback in this game, but I would say the Bengals are looking like the better offense. I feel like they have more momentum behind them winning these close games. It seems that they are the fan favorite. People like to root for an underdog. I still feel the Rams will win because they are at home. I think it'd be tough for the Bengals to, overcome that home advantage, even though they have done that past 2 weeks. I think Stafford has really been itching for this chance for a long time. He's been, in an unfortunate situation in Detroit. And I think he knows this may be his one shot to get a Super Bowl. And he's a guy that knows how to win close games as well. So I think the Rams will win a close one, maybe by a field goal or so.
I don't remember a Super Bowl. I was going to say football game, but I'll just stick with Super Bowl that's had as many good feeling storylines to it as this one.
Yeah.
Football fan, good person. I don't care who you are. You got to appreciate this game. It almost reminds me a bit of the finals from last year where it's like a change of pace. You're not seeing LeBron. You're not seeing Durant. You're not seeing Curry. You're like, who are these two teams? Milwaukee and Phoenix. Now we got Cincinnati in the final stage. But on both sides, good story. Matt Stafford, look at his career. He's, like you said, was drafted 13 years ago, got his first playoff win this year, and was miserable in Detroit. It's probably one of the bigger what-if stories in the history of the league, which is what if he had a better surrounding, looking at how talented he's undoubtedly one of the most talented arm talents to ever play football. And then aside from him, Odell Beckham Jr., obviously he's had all his drama in New York. I mean, Cleveland, you can talk for hours about his drama there, but now he's got his chance. He's going to go and potentially win a Super Bowl as well. And on the other side, Cincinnati, Joe Burrow, I think if he wins this, you can't really argue that there's been many 2 to 3 year stretches by an athlete in terms of in history of winning. Like undefeated, best season statistically of all time in college football, wins the national championship there, goes first pick overall.
Heisman.
Obviously,
Yeah.
Yep, the Heisman as well. Goes first overall pick, then leads a team who had as low as anybody, basically in terms of preseason odds to win the Super Bowl, to go and win it for the city of Cincinnati. Oh wait, and this was with one of the worst injuries we've seen in a while, right in the middle of that. Like you can't really make that up. Beat Patrick Mahomes twice this year to get there. So personally, as a football fan, as a person, I can find reasons to be happy regardless of who the winner is here. But I think, like you said, it'll be a great game for sure.
Yeah, I think both these teams, and especially their offenses and receiving cores, are just really fun. There's so many great storylines, as you've hinted to, Dylan, just about this game in general, and talking about Stafford, finally getting out of Detroit, see what he can do with, really a complete roster, even though they lost Cam Akers. They kind of lost Cam Akers, I guess, early in the year. Still never really had a complete running game in his life. But just, losing Robert Woods, but then it's like, oh yeah, we have Odell now. It doesn't matter. And Cooper Kupp putting on one of the best receiving seasons we've ever seen.
Yep.
Just insane season. You talk about, doing everything, route running after the catch, a deep ball, tracking the ball, blocking, just finding soft spots in the zones. He's just been ridiculously good for them. And then having Odell, once he got kind of acclimated, just a touchdown a game, coming up clutch, in the playoffs, which we didn't see, in the one game where it was with the Giants, but just seeing that team kind of come together, I think it's going to be really interesting. I think, with the Super Bowl is different because you have 2 weeks of preparation instead of like the normal one. So just, letting the better coaches and the schematics go to work. Even McVay said it after the Rams' first Super Bowl. He was just completely outcoached by Belichick. So it'll be interesting to see, how he responds to that. And, the Rams are a team usually where, they have the lead in the first half, they're going to win the game versus, the Bengals who have trailed, in a lot of games, and then they just come back. We saw it against the Chiefs. They looked gone. Like Chiefs had them dead in the water, but the Bengals just kept coming back, and they made Mahomes, Lou Anarumo devised a phenomenal game plan in the second half and was just able to completely limit Mahomes. I think it'll be interesting to see, obviously the Bengals defensively, you want to attack them with the short game. It'll be interesting to see how Stafford, if he gets impatient, just go for the long bombs. You obviously have the talent and the arm just to, basically make every single throw that you want to make. But just being patient and being methodical. And, if you get that early lead, just work the clock versus, them in the trenches as well. The Bengals O-line is just horrific. They had Danico Autry tearing them apart against the Titans. It's just rough. You want to believe that, you have all these dynamic playmakers. I think they have 3 top 30 receivers probably in the league. The Bengals do with Boyd, Higgins, and Chase. But just how they're going to manage that up front. Quentin Spain's really been the only good lineman for them. And even in the run game, there just haven't been holes for Mixon in the past 2 months or so. So it'll be interesting to see, the Rams are just so loaded up front, but they were still on both sides of the ball in that first half. They were losing after the first half to the Niners. They were getting destroyed in the trenches. So it'll be interesting to see, how that battle in the trenches plays out, because we saw it last year in the Super Bowl. What made that game was, Shaq Barrett and JPP just basically headhunting Mahomes.
It seems like the Bengals are invincible and have been able to overcome every challenge that we've seen in the playoffs so far. But, here's a new challenge. Aaron Donald, take that, probably I think the best player in football in terms of what he can do, not just his own stats, but you talk about a guy that has to get schemed heavily before the game. You double team him, you attack him basically. And then on top of Donald, I think the Rams, have a Hall of Famer at every level of defense with Von Miller and Jalen Ramsey. I think if the Bengals fall back in this game like they did against the Chiefs, especially when you add Sean McVay's coaching abilities and the dangers of the Rams offense as well. It will be tougher for them to come back. But I think that Bengals O-line, Burrow was sacked 9 times against Tennessee. The Rams is another challenge that's even greater than that. So if they can't figure that out, and not many can figure out Aaron Donald, other than, Shanahan and the 49ers, we've seen them a ton, then it's going to be a long Sunday evening for them. And I think ultimately the Rams will come out by a slight margin in that game.
I just think the confidence that Joe Burrow has, I haven't seen that confidence since Trey Young against the Knicks, right? That's the confidence.
You got to bring that up.
He's got to have the most swag out of any player in the NFL right now. Joe Burrow.
And I think he thinks he's going to win. Like, he knows he's going to win. He's not worried.
Yep.
So that's something I appreciate.
Joe Burrow has never lost a big game in his life.
That's true.
Right.
Big
Like,
game player.
we've seen him throughout these playoffs, just like, Raiders game was a bit of a toss up. You had Derrick Henry coming back for the Titans, just playing really good ball down the stretch, phenomenal defense, just took every hit in the book. Wasn't, his numbers obviously weren't great in that game, but he fought through that game and then was able to lead the team down the field before Tannehill, choked the game away basically. And then just last week, just rallying back, just score against a really talented Chiefs defense, has good as rushers as well. We talk about the defensive lines again, Jeffrey Simmons, Bud Dupree, Harold Landry are all like very, very good players, very underrated players. But you're facing, Aaron Donald and Von Miller, who are 2 future Hall of Famers, and Leonard Floyd, I think is like making $15 million a year on his new contract now too. I mean, it's just a whole nother ball game. And then you have, a great defensive coordinator scheming it up, and it's just, you're playing the top of the top. And how will he fare in this environment? I think it's what makes this game so intriguing as well. There's so many questions. And, speaking of those questions, are there any X factors that you guys have for this game? Just like one player that you think will make all of the difference?
I'll say the matchup rather than a player. I think we're all looking forward to Jamar Chase versus Jalen Ramsey. That's going to be, grab your popcorn for that one. So the X factor there then becomes T. Higgins, and the X factor becomes Tyler Boyd, and how is Burrow going to find his other options, which he did great against the Chiefs. T. Higgins had a monster game, making huge plays down the stretch. So I think Ramsey, which you expect from him at this point in his career, if he's able to take Chase out of the game, and then maybe the Rams adjust to double Higgins, how are the Bengals going to find options? How are they going to be the ones to come out on top in those matchups? Because the running game is great. It's been great with Mixon, but obviously that's no guarantee against the Rams front. So they're going to have to figure out ways to scheme it up and get around Ramsey and get Chase's touches, because obviously they're at his best when he's at his best. So I think that'll be what I'm watching the most in that game.
Yeah. I want to say like Odell versus Eli Apple, because that's probably gonna be the matchup. Just burnt toast. But I'm interested to see, you talk about what's happening on the outside between, the Rams defense and the Bengals offense. But, the point where the Rams have been more vulnerable this year has been with their nickel corner, whether it's like through injuries or just inconsistent play. How they use Tyler Boyd, how they're able to use motion pre and post snap and just move guys around. The health of CJ Uzomah, who I think is like a really, really, really good tight end for them and just picks up the tough yards whenever they need him to. It'll just be interesting to see how they're able to use these other places. And obviously, like Zach Taylor and Sean McVay are very familiar with each other's schemes. So just, that kind of coaching chess match, even though I think Zach Taylor is a terrible coach, he has a really good scheme. Just seeing how they deploy all their different weapons, because both these teams are so deep in terms of offensive skill position players.
Absolutely.
I just think, I think unless you're a fan of whichever team loses, I think we're all winners here.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is just going to be fun. And I'm really in it for the storylines. I'm happy for whoever wins. It's going to be a good time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Thank you guys for listening. This was a great show to kick off the semester. We'll be back next week. Hopefully same day, same time. Thank you for listening. Any closing remarks?
Thanks, guys. It'll be a great semester, and we're excited to bring in more guests. Also, keep your eyes open. I think we're planning on having a great interview series as well, bringing in some special guests this semester. So it'll be a fun one.